USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Well, it is. I think it does go to the system and what's achievable and what your real barriers are. If you actually stop and think about that, it can be things that aren't even immediately obvious. Maybe someone doesn't like working out by themselves, but if they never stop to think about that particular barrier, they'll continue to run into it. I'll make the system easier. I'll set my shoes out by my bed. I'll get my clothes ready. And then they kind of wonder why that's not working either. And it's like, well, that's not working because that wasn't the real barrier for you. It's something else.
Do you ever feel like you're letting yourself off the hook when you don't do something you're committed to doing or that you wanted to do? But you also know that life is, well, life. And sometimes we have to give ourselves grace and back off a little. Go for plan B or C or F even. But then the question becomes, what side of that line am I on? Am I giving myself grace? Or am I being soft? Is there more to gain by gutting it out and getting it done? Or will I be better served by rest? And how does one even begin to decipher that in challenging moments or in reflection? Welcome back to the Afternoon Snack Podcast. I'm Alex Parker, and today, Meredith and I are getting into the balancing act of doing hard things when you don't want to and not doing hard things when you really ought not to. This is a topic that is difficult to discuss as a general theme, but one that comes up frequently in one-on-one work. And it is that work, along with our own personal experience in sports, business ownership, and life, that we are going to use to draw some conclusions here.
Ma'am, excuse me. Excuse me, ma'am.
Meredith?
I was just wondering if you're ready to record this podcast.
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, you're on your phone, and I hit record, so we're doing it.
Okay, I was responding to somebody. Very important.
Like
VIP.
Like your
Not
girlfriend?
my mom. Not my girlfriend. No, she knows not to text me on certain days.
On certain numbers,
At
too.
certain times. Yeah.
You ever just kind of feel funny? Like, you ever days where you're like, I feel okay, but something is not quite right.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are days where sometimes I just feel kind of grumpy. And then there are days where I feel a little off physically.
Yeah. Do they often overlap, or? I find
Sometimes.
you are your grumpiest when you're kind of like sharp.
Sharp?
When you're like okay physically. You can really tap into the grump.
Yeah, there's extra energy to be grumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like I'm tired physically and mentally and I might be getting sick. Therefore, like I could be grumpy, but I actually just don't have that in me.
Exactly. When I don't feel well, I just have to say over and over again that I don't feel well.
And
that's basically my day.
Do you think there's something wrong with me? No. Are you sure? No. Okay, so you do think there's something wrong with me. No, that's not what I said. Yeah, I had that today a little bit. I was like, I don't know. I have just forever allergies, I think. Like they started up a few weeks ago because the Fernie allergy season starts really late compared to what I'm used to in the South. In the South, it's like late March, to mid-April is when things start to get bad for me, or that's like historically been the case. Here it's like mid-June.
I do think it is your allergies because it's windy today.
Yeah.
And my eyes are a little itchy. And usually that's peak allergy for me. When I'm like, ooh, my eyes are a touch itchy.
I feel so
That's
bad.
like 10 out of 10. I've got really bad allergies.
Yeah.
For me. So if I have really bad allergies, I'm guessing yours are allergies
I'm like
too.
near death.
Yeah.
Mine, here's the thing. Okay. And this is just the way I think the body works. I'm not an allergist. I do think if I was going to be a doctor, I know I said on a podcast way back that I would be an orthopedic surgeon. That was a panic answer. I didn't think about it. I think what I would probably be is like an immunologist / allergist, because I find that just like I find the immune system to be just super fascinating. But anyways, so this is related to that. And I'm not speaking from a place of like, I know anything beyond the basics, but I think that So my experience moving here and when I like to Western Canada from the Southeast United States, I thought I didn't have allergies. And I used to be an allergy sufferer, like bad, like allergy shot bad. And so I moved here and I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. The pollen isn't as bad. There's not as many things blooming. Like I don't have allergies out here. Praise be. But really, it just took my body a few years to figure out what to be allergic to, and now they're just as bad. It's just like later. And what has happened the last few years, not this year, I would go back home to North Carolina in like mid-April, May timeframe. So I would go there and just start having allergy symptoms right away because the body doesn't forget, right? Like that's, T cell, B cell stuff. So I just immediately into allergy season when I get home. And then I come back here, also home. I use the word home for both. And just I roll right into Western Canada allergies. So it's just like the last few years, I've had basically like 3 months straight of allergies. I mean, I can't complain that much, but it is not fun if you are like me. It is not a good time. And I think I've been on a couple of different allergy medications since being here. And also like you can't get the same stuff over the counter. And so I've had to really kind of like experiment with what works since being here, find the right cocktail, Because like, I'm not going to get into an allergist here.
Yeah. I think I had some sort of allergies here because I got addicted to Afrin.
Well, I think it's called Dristan here.
Dristan.
Yeah.
And I used that probably for 3.5 weeks straight, a couple times a day. I was that guy. I was the bad husband in Bad Sisters. Do you remember that guy? The one that they ended up like...
Yeah, I don't remember the connection to Dristan.
He did nasal spray all the time. Remember they tried to poison him? Spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah, because he was also addicted to Afrin.
And I felt like I was him, but only with regards to the nasal spray. We had no other qualities in common.
Yeah, that's good because he's not a good guy.
No, he wasn't.
Really bad guy.
Yeah.
I can't.
At what point I said, I've been using it a lot.
Well, because I had like kind of noticed, were you using it like behind my back? Like, were you being sneaky with it?
A little, because I remember you saying that it is habit forming and not to use it for too many days in a row.
Yeah.
This was a while back because I use it when I get colds, which thankfully is rare. But anyway, I had been using it a lot.
Because of allergies. And it is the most magical medicine ever. I'm sure there are more magical medicines, but from a day-to-day, to clear your nose, it feels better than putting chapstick on chapped lips. It is so relieving. Yeah.
So anyways, I was using that. And at one point you said, wait, have you been using it, 5, 6 days? And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking more like 5 or 6 weeks. So I don't even know. It was probably longer than a month or around a month. And so I said, no, like a couple of weeks. And you were so disappointed.
I was pretty disappointed. You were like, but it's for, you said it, but I've been using it for this, as if it matters. It'll be fine because I've just been using it for this.
Then I said, but I need it.
And I was like, yeah, you need it because you're having rebound symptoms. And I guess, like, did you know?
I did. But I knew that if I really needed to stop,
yeah,
I could.
Because like Afrin doesn't actually do anything.
It was bad. It was bad. I'll admit. Every day I'm thinking, okay, this is the last time.
Like the mechanism that, like how it works is also what causes. Because it doesn't actually do anything to like relieve. It literally just relieves the symptom. Like it doesn't.
I know.
Change anything about what produces them. It just constricts your blood vessels. But like turns out if you constrict your blood vessels enough, they like overcompensate, and that's what causes the rebound congestion. Yeah. Because I told you, I was like, you should go. I think I said, you should go get a prescription at the pharmacist for the prescription that I use, which works like, I mean, you think Afrin is magic. That stuff's magic.
See, I used that stuff once.
Uh-huh.
Never use any medication that is not your own prescription.
So you stole it?
I did. You did say, do you want some?
I would never, ever do that.
We're not supposed to do that, so don't. Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
I accidentally used Meredith's prescription nasal spray.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. It was too powerful. It was too powerful.
I think
it felt like my brain was getting eaten.
You were expecting it to do what Afrin did. Because it works, it's azolastine, which is a antihistamine. And then it also has a steroid. Yeah. So it like reduces inflammation.
That was also it.
What?
My arms were humongous the next day.
Oh, yeah. You're like, I can't take this stuff.
I can't take steroids. People already think I'm on the gear.
On the gear. I'm on the Afrin.
My veins were out of control, popping out of my muscles.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, there's just no way I'm going to get away with this.
I was at the grocery store.
It was a one and done for me.
Today. Yeah. I mean, you already you don't need to attract any more attention.
No.
Just be
no.
ridiculous. Like Johnny Bravo walking down the street with your blonde hair. You don't know who Johnny Bravo is, do you?
No.
Okay. Well.
But I did smile to kind of like encourage more jokes from you.
He looks like this. I'll show you. So you could actually file Johnny Bravo under a potential Halloween costume.
If I ever dress up for Halloween again.
Looks like
okay.
Johnny Bravo.
I think I'd have to grow my hair out a little bit. And yeah, I would have to do some more nasal steroids.
Yeah. No, I think if you did tight black shirt, black Ray-Bans, blue jeans, black boots, cuff the t-shirt, I think you could do Johnny Bravo without.
I feel like that would be a regular cool look for me.
Yeah, but you would get to go. It's kind of
what I already do.
You get to go to Halloween costumes just looking like a cool version of yourself. Right. And people are like, oh, what are you? Kind of thinking like, oh, you didn't dress up. And you're like, I'm Johnny Bravo.
Right.
And he's got like a couple of poses you could do. Okay.
So if we ever go to a Halloween party,
I have
that's
also
the caveat.
Your potential other ones. But this is, okay, so now we have to come up with a whole nother set of Halloween costumes because you've changed your hair. But like brown hair, Alex, Tom Cruise from Risky Business, top of the list. And again, you just get to show up and look cool in like a button up and some socks and Ray-Bans. People are like, oh my gosh, what are you? You're like, then you just slide across the floor. You're like, Risky Business. And they're like, oh, I get it. And then your alternative, this is peak costume would be Ace Ventura.
Yeah. But you give me enough of a heads up on an actual Halloween party that I would enjoy going to, I could grow my hair out for that.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And because both you'd look really cool. Because even Ace Ventura, you can look like the real cool guy.
Yeah.
I'm going as Beetlejuice. Though you can't cool Beetlejuice.
No.
Like, I want full, like, dead skin on my face, a green, do the eye paint, get my hair to stick straight out, do the, like, Michael Keaton face. You're going to look awesome. People are going to be like, oh, you're really attractive. And they're going to be like, what is wrong with her?
So just, like, us walking as regular people wouldn't really change much?
Normal. Just, like, normal expression.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, today's been like a not quite right day. Yeah, allergies.
But you powered through.
I got some Zyrtec. I did. And you just push through those feelings, which like brings us to the topic of the day. Giving yourself grace.
Versus
letting yourself off the hook. And okay, this is pertinent, I think, for anyone who works in the helping people industry, because it's hard to be a human being straight up in 2025. Job, obligations, fear about the future, kids, look at the news. What the hell is going on with the big, beautiful bill? Are Elon and Trump still friends? I don't know. There's so many things that just like rattle your day.
There's also hormonal changes.
Yeah.
There's the fact that it seems like so many people just don't sleep. Can't sleep, not having air conditioning.
Oh, God.
But yeah, there's big stuff and small stuff.
Yeah. So this is like a common thing that comes up, which is basically like, do I give myself grace? Am I letting myself off the hook? Am I being too hard on myself? Am I being too hard on others? Should I give others grace? And I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in that middle space where maybe they don't know. They're like, do I push through or do I back off?
A common question is, when do I know to take a rest day?
Yeah. I think that's one of the most tangible examples of this.
Yeah. So you have a hard day at work, or a common one is, I didn't sleep well. So I didn't know if I should sleep in to get more sleep or if I should get up and do my workout.
Yeah. Or like I get to the end of my day and I'm feeling tired from work. Should I skip my workout and rest? Or should I just do my workout and build the habit?
Yeah. There's also things like in the winter, some of us suffer from seasonal depression, or just if we are suffering from some sort of emotional impact, maybe an argument with a spouse or something bigger, a death of a family member even. Mm-hmm. There is a time where you hear this a lot. You need to give yourself grace. But what does that mean? Does that mean that you should just kind of sit on the couch all day and just let yourself feel the things? Or does it mean you should try to maintain your full routine? And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And you added to the outline of this podcast, victim mentality, and talking a bit about that. And you know, that's a real thing. Like a victim complex is a real thing that some people have in this world. I'm not quite sure if people who listen to this podcast or people who've hired coaches are necessarily likely to be a like full-on victim complex kind of person. Maybe. Like, I'm sure that they exist out there. But I do think that from time to time, we all can kind of fall into this mental space. So the way that victim mentality, or I guess more specifically, the victim complex is defined, is a mindset where a person habitually views themselves as a victim of circumstances, often to an extent that is not supported by objective evidence. This can lead to a pattern of blaming others, avoiding responsibility, and feeling powerless to change their situation. And I want to hover over the last line, feeling powerless to change their situation. I think that is how it shows up for most people who dabble in victim complex, but don't live their whole life in victim complex. I think that it's sometimes like you just want it to be something else. It's almost like I want to feel powerless, like this is not inside my control. I just want it to be anything but me. And like that's normal, I think. That's a protective mechanism. But I do think it helps to be able to kind of notice when you're doing that, because that's the only way to start to walk yourself out of that mental place. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I always fall back on radical acceptance. Yeah. When something isn't the way that you want it to be. And again, it can be something big, like the death of a family member, or getting really, really sick, or getting a cold, or forgetting your lunch. It can range. And I think there are certain things that you can't change, like someone passing away or something really sad happening. But there is a moment of this, there's accepting the reality.
When was the last time you remember feeling powerless to your situation? Do you have anything that like jumps out?
Small things. I got pretty sick in the winter and I felt that for a moment. Like why is this happening to me? Like I take really good care of myself. This is a bummer. Like like you said, it's very easy to fall into that mindset trap. And then, you know, there are moments where like we get into arguments and sometimes you feel so frustrated and almost powerless. And I do sometimes say like, why is this happening to me? Like I'm a good person. Why is this? And you do ask yourself that question. And I think, like I said, there are moments where you wonder, well, I've tried everything. This just isn't working. But then there are moments of clarity where I feel, well, wait, hold up. This is happening to you. And that's the first step. It's like accepting the reality that your relationship isn't what you want it to be, or you're sick.
Yeah.
And then you move forward in a productive way. And sometimes that means repairing the relationship in whatever way that means, or setting a boundary, or you move forward in a different way. But there's a decision to be made, and it's an action. even in the moment when you just feel like wallowing and crying and being a baby. And I think that's okay to do for a period of time.
Yeah.
But then you have to snap out of it.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say like that mindset goes hand in hand with the negativity bias, which is also a very human thing. Like we just kind of are evolved and conditioned to see the negative parts of any like situation or experience. So you always, I think, kind of constantly have to or counteract that, which doesn't mean being like choosing to be oblivious or toxically positive, but it's sort of accepting that like those things happen and they're part of just life, and finding ways to move on. I think I was thinking as you were answering that, the last time I felt it or when I feel it, aside from trying to get UPS on the phone, which I think like customer service is just really taken a downturn. I would say like if I ever have to do something like customer service related, it's bad. I almost always feel pretty powerless to the point where if something does work out for me, I'm like legitimately surprised.
Yeah.
But also the whole website thing a few years ago, like last year.
Yeah.
We were both in that, but it was like you just feel kind of stuck and helpless, like I can't do anything. But then you start to realize like you can do something. You can start to work on alternatives. You still have a really great collection of members and customers who you have on email, you have on Facebook. Like you have a way to move forward. Mm-hmm. So focusing on that.
It was helpful during that time. And if you aren't familiar, go back into our podcasts. Link it. Mm-hmm. But our website, our whole business, like Shopify, was owned by the people who built our website, which is something that we now know not to do, and you shouldn't either. But it was held hostage, and we didn't know if we were going to get it back. And there were moments during that time, we laugh now, but we almost switched off. Alternating days where one person would be mentally struggling and breaking down and concerned and worried and going to the worst case scenario and weeping. And then the other person would have their wits about themselves and be able to say, okay, this is happening. I get it. You are in your feelings. It's scary. But like, what are the options here? What can we do? What do we have to wait to find out? What are our options based on their response?
Right.
And finding those maps and options and talking through worst case scenarios. Like in the worst case scenario, what do we do? And knowing that we are capable and can solve that problem is really helpful.
Yeah.
And I think the more that you can take a step back and accept the reality and find a productive path forward makes you more resilient to the next time something you feel powerless in.
Yeah. So what is it like when you hear the words like give yourself grace? What does that mean? What do you think it means to most people? How does that look?
That's a great question. There is part of me, the harder side of me, that would have said, it is letting yourself off the hook. But I've matured since then. And I think it's just allowing for balance and considering the circumstances. I would say it's another word for grace is adaptation.
Yeah, like altering your course of action based on situations that weren't entirely predictable when you set out to do a certain action or plan.
You said it.
I just came up with that. That sounded like it was written down, right? Man, years of doing this, it really
nailed
are
it.
paying off. I'll clap for it.
Pat yourself on the back.
Yeah. That's it. It's being willing to change course.
It just reminded me of a post where I explained that consistency doesn't rely on discipline. It relies on adaptability.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it is.
Yep.
It's giving yourself grace, but maintaining consistency.
Yeah.
Working with people and being who I am, I think grace is being able to move forward, but in a different way, like you said.
Yeah. And I always think about it as, I think about things as feedback loops almost always, because I just think that's what life is, like a series of feedback loops. And so what is most likely to result in me or whoever being in a positive feedback loop versus what's likely to result in me being in a negative feedback loop. And sometimes that's just mindset. Like you could, like arguably, both decisions could be right if you make them right and you have your head right about them. You can make the right decision wrong if you lament about making it endlessly and you get yourself stuck in a shame cycle, because shame is always a negative feedback loop. But a positive feedback loop from the angle of giving yourself grace. I had this conversation with someone last week, who I want to go for a run because I had planned on it, but it's been a really, really long week at work already, and it's only Wednesday, and I'm feeling really tired. So I'm struggling with what to do because it's in the afternoon. And, I kind of made the point, going home and having a nap instead of going for a run could be the thing that unlocks activity and movement and exercise for you for the rest of the week, if that's what you truly need. Whereas forcing yourself to go out in the hot weather and go for a run when you've been getting the shit kicked out of you at work may push you over the edge and force you to take the rest of the week off. Like that becomes a negative feedback loop. So like think about which one is more likely and make your decision accordingly.
There's the action that can create a positive or negative feedback loop. So let's say you don't go for a run. Oh, well, I didn't go for a run. That contributes to a negative feedback. Why even run tomorrow? Because I didn't go and then I didn't exercise all last week. What's one more day? And that can contribute to this negative feedback loop. Or people like to say slippery slope. And then there's the positive feedback loop. Well, I was able to go for a run on this day, so that's going to keep up my streak or whatever. But I think there's also the mental and the way that you frame something that can contribute.
Yeah.
So like you just said, if you go for a run, that's positive. Or it's negative. Maybe physically it puts you into a greater hole. Maybe you get sick. But on the mental and mindset front, if you frame a rest day, I'm getting the shit kicked out of me at work. I'm going to rest today and have a nap after work so that I can prioritize running tomorrow morning. Instead of, well, I'm a failure anyway. So
right.
I'm lazy. And then the next morning you wake up and you're like, well, I'm lazy anyways. Like I missed yesterday. So what's the point? So it's like, you can almost contradict that negative feedback loop of action by reframing it in a positive way.
Right. And that's like, the strictest definition of action and inaction is positive and negative. Positive is action, negative is inaction. But yeah, like you said, the mind's really powerful here. And truly, like the only slippery slope that really exists is in your head and what you do with decisions. And that's why slippery slope is a logical fallacy. Like that's how it's defined. So I think when you're looking at making a decision and trying to decide, okay, what am I doing here? Am I giving myself grace? Am I letting myself off the hook? I think you can kind of think about it as like a line, and which side of that line are you on? And be honest with that. And I think, I was just thinking, a lot of people, and I'm in this camp too, and I've done this, like you opt for inaction from the vantage point of I'm giving myself grace, but then you realize that has become a pattern. And it is just a matter of time before it kind of becomes, I realize I'm not doing what I want to be doing, and I can't ignore that anymore. And so then it makes it really clear which side of the line. Like I'm not on the giving myself grace side of the line. I'm on the not doing what I want to be doing side of the line, which means I'm letting myself off the hook. And so
this is all provided that you've set a goal that is doable within your life.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, for example, setting a goal at the beginning of the week to go to the gym every day and then like going one day and not going anymore. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not a failure. That's just something that's happened. And so you can kind of look at that objectively and be like, okay, why did that happen? Especially if there is something going on that's sort of tough. Is it truly because I have overwhelming circumstances that are preventing me from either like literally doing it, like I can't get there, or I'm so emotionally and like mentally overwhelmed that it actually would be a bad idea, or my schedule is overwhelmed that it actually would be a bad idea. So it's being honest with that. And then, or is it because I don't necessarily have the systems in place to make it easy enough for me to get there so that I get there? Is it because I haven't set myself up either with like putting the time in my schedule or literally just like having a plan in place? Like what am I going to do when I get to the gym? And we're using the gym as an example because it's a really common one, but this obviously it's why am I not playing my guitar as much as I want to be playing my guitar? That's a systems thing. And so again, this goes back to once you identify that it's a systems thing, you can either accept that and move on and not do the thing that you thought you wanted to do, but really you don't want to do it bad enough to put the system in place. Or you can say, I really want to do this thing. I recognize it's new and it's going to take work that isn't just like conjuring up motivation at 3 p.m. in the afternoon when it's impossible to do that. The real work is on getting the system in place, on getting the plan in place, on getting the program in place to make it easy enough to do. And what I think that does, if you're a visual person and you visualize this as a line, is systems start to shift the threshold over. They just make things easy to do so that even if there are like extenuating circumstances in your life, if you have bomb-proof routines around exercise, like maybe you're not doing a 2-hour workout every day when your family member is in the hospital, but maybe you're doing 30 or 60 minutes and you're able to do that without it crushing you. So it's a bit of a threshold thing. There's obviously like some overlap. It's a gradient more than a line, but you kind of get the idea.
I also think that there's making something easier. Like one thing that you didn't mention was creating a system or accountability at the start. So for example, with the workout example, you would maybe sign up for a class after work. And that can be a commitment that you make instead of I'll try to get in a workout when I get home. Knowing yourself, if you've tried that many times and you continue to not do that, then maybe finding another option. So don't just like try harder.
Yeah.
Something like that. Find someone who will come over and meet you for a workout. That can be helpful as well. So it's like, it's making it easier to do or creating some sort of like extra, I hate this word, but like motivation to do it. Incentive to show up. Maybe not letting somebody down or getting, dinged for a cancellation fee. At the same time, we've talked about this before, it's also making the thing easier by making the actual goal easier. So not making getting to the gym 5 times a week easier, but maybe reducing the number of times you go to the gym by 2 or down to 2 times until that you've met that commitment, you've built enough confidence, you've built it into your schedule very easily 2 days a week. Now you can add a 3rd.
Yeah.
There's also that option. And I think a lot of people fall into that trap of they set the goals too high and then they just keep, and I think that kind of goes away from letting yourself off the hook versus grace. That's just setting a goal that's too high for you right now.
Yeah. Well, it is. I think it does go to like the system and what's achievable and what your real barriers are, like what prevents you from doing that. And if you actually stop and think about that, it can be things that aren't even immediately obvious. Like maybe someone doesn't like working out by themselves, but if they never stop to think about that particular barrier, they'll continue to run into it. And so going into a Globo gym where everyone has on their headphones and they're doing their bodybuilding routines, that's probably not going to be very fun for that person. That person may have a better time working out in a gym community that does group classes or small group or stuff like that, even if the workout itself is not as like good, quote unquote good, as they could get in doing their own programming in a completely independent setting. Doing less good programming more consistently is going to outweigh the benefits of having the best program on the planet that you don't do. But yeah, being honest with what the barriers are so that you can set up systems that work to reduce those, because I think a lot of people are like, I'll make the system easier. I'll set my shoes out by my bed. I'll get my clothes ready. And then they kind of wonder why that's not working either. And it's like, well, that's not working because that wasn't the real barrier for you. It's something else.
Yeah.
What is it? But you have to be willing to sort of look at it from different angles and be honest with like, yeah, I guess I'm just a little afraid to go in there by myself. I'm afraid I don't know what I'm doing. I like having people, whatever.
Yeah. I'm kind of struggling a little bit with swimming right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding myself, and I work with a lot of people one-on-one, so I understand the thought process, but I'm struggling in a big way with getting to the pool. I don't particularly like swimming. I don't find it increases my fitness in any way because I'm so strong cardiovascularly on the bike and the run. I can bike and I can run outside. I have to be inside with the pool. I have to go at a specific time. I have to put my bathing suit on. I don't really like it. It's taking a long time to get better. I'm not seeing the benefits. I have thought about this ad nauseum as to why it's so hard for me to get to the pool.
Yeah.
And the straight up answer is like, I don't really like swimming. I don't really see the value of it because I'm not training actively for a race that's coming up in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Even if there was a value, it's not strong enough to get me there some days.
Yeah.
Some days it is, some days it's not. But it really does take a lot of asking yourself why. Mm-hmm. And when I don't go, I do have to acknowledge I am not holding myself to the commitment that I made.
Yeah.
And do I feel bad about that? Sometimes. But then I say, what's the reason?
Right.
And I think that's what's productive. It's not feeling bad about not doing it. It's expending that energy asking yourself, what is the reason I am not doing this?
Yeah.
And it might be a multitude of factors all contributing.
Mm-hmm.
But once you can figure out, I don't actually want to swim, I don't like it, I don't want to do a triathlon, then that allows you to move forward. And that's okay to say, I don't like triathlon. I'm not there yet.
Right.
I'm going to try it again. But that could be the full answer.
Well, okay. And I like that caveat because it brings up this topic of motivation to do things. And motivation is a word that means many things to many people, but ultimately it is like in a single moment, how badly you want to do something. And there are a lot of things that contribute to it. So when people set brand new goals or they're doing something that's super new, motivation tends to be high. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of dopamine associated with it. Maybe there's new equipment and you really like new equipment. So like motivation is quite high. And there's this behavior model. And if you're by a computer when you're listening to this, you can Google it so that you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's called the FOG behavior model. And so it's on the y-axis is motivation. At the bottom is low motivation. At the top is high motivation. And then on the x-axis is ability. So how hard something is to do. So at the origin of x and y, it's extremely hard to do. And then as you move down the x-axis towards infinity, it is very easy to do. And so essentially motivation has an inverse relationship with ability. So when you map it out, you get this kind of asymptotic curve towards zero. You know, asymptotic.
Yeah, I actually do know what that means.
Approaching a number.
Yeah.
So when motivation is very high, you can override the difficulty of something.
I was a stats professor's assistant.
What were you?
Yeah.
Of all the math disciplines, that's not even a visual math.
I don't know.
So like,
I was smart in college. I spent all my smartness in college.
Do you want to? We can talk about a NOVA table. Okay.
Continue.
P scores. No. Okay. So, anyways, when motivation is high, you can do really hard things. I'm going to say with greater ease. I wish there was, you can override the difficulty of something. So if something's very hard to do, that's okay because you're really motivated to do it. Such as going swimming in the middle of the winter and like choosing to get in water and be cold and all of that stuff. So as motivation decreases, something has to be extremely easy to do. And so there's this asymptotic line and it's called the action line. So on the like the right side, like above the line is where success occurs. Below the line is where failure occurs. So if motivation is too low, but something is difficult to do, people don't tend to have success. And then if motivation is like, super low, it has to be like a freebie in order for it to work. So then you start thinking, okay, so what are my toggles here? It's not, you can make things easier to do to an extent. Like you can have your swimsuit out, but swimming is inherently like kind of a hard thing to do. you're choosing to go get in the water, get wet, do something. You're gonna have to take a shower. You're gonna be itchy. It's not something you really enjoy doing. So then you look at, how do I increase my motivation to do this thing? And you can increase your motivation to do this thing maybe by periodically reminding yourself of like your why. Mm-hmm. Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? And so you can kind of jog that motivation back up by being like, oh, I am training for something, and that's really exciting, and this is important to me, and I'm a person who does hard things. You can kind of get into the values and identity side of the equation, and so now your motivation is creeping up. So the difficult thing, you can now do something that's harder. Like you're going to have success, versus if you just kind of let your motivation stay in the toilet because you're not periodically thinking about the bigger picture. You're going to constantly fail. Like it's just going to be a thing that you stop doing because it's too hard for you to do with your level of motivation.
What's one swim session?
Exactly. And that's where that mental slippery slope, you can go either way with that. Like that slippery slope in your mind can lower motivation further and make this thing impossible to ever do and have success with. Or you can say like, I'm resting because I need it. This will give me success later in the week. Sometimes, the key to continuing to show up is knowing when to back off. Like you can go down the other path in your mind, and now motivation goes back up to a point where you will have success, but you have to be willing to do that mental activity every now and then. And you're someone who has a ton of experience with athletics. Like you wouldn't think that you have to do this dance, but you do.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm actually, there's part of me that's bummed out almost to realize that I'm there, but it is partially because I have made working out, running, strength, biking so convenient in my life. I have seen the value of doing that. I have a treadmill for the winter, so I don't have to get out and run in the winter because that's hard. That's hard for me, even though I've done it. I have a gym in my house. I have everything that I need that will make things easier for me to work out. That is part of the reason why I'm able to work out so much. Biking, I have multiple trainers for biking. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go in aero position. I have a Zwift bike. I don't want to go outside. I have a Zwift bike. I don't want to be inside. I can go outside. Which bike do I choose? I don't want to gravel or mountain. Like I've made this easy, and I know that's a privilege.
Yeah.
Swimming, I'm not there yet. I've tried to make it easy by signing up for swim club, which does help a ton.
Yeah.
It's at the point, even for fitness, I have a coach and there's an accountability aspect. And we work with people all the time that are like, I just want to get to the point where I don't need a coach. I'm not there. I'm not there with physical activity. I'm sure I would exercise, but would I do the stuff that I don't like doing, like deadlifts or strength? Probably not.
Yeah.
Like I need that accountability. I tried to find a swim coach. I was asking the instructors, like, will you coach me?
Yeah.
Will you give me workouts? Because I need that.
Yeah.
I don't have it yet, and I'm struggling. I don't have someone saying, you need to go to you need to do an open water swim every Friday. I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to send you these workouts.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling without that. Uh-huh. So I know this about myself, and I pay the money to have it, and I'm still finding that source for swimming. I probably will have to pay for 3 days a week swim club if I want to keep doing triathlon.
But you know that about yourself. And so you can set up the system to work against that and help increase motivation through a monetary commitment. Like that is a tool that is at your disposal. In assuming what we've experienced, and I'm sure like after you have a good pool session, you do feel good about it. Like there are real benefits to honoring those commitments and like not letting yourself off the hook, assuming there's nothing like catastrophic going on when it comes to health seeking habits. So, exercise, going outside for a walk, meeting up with friends, time in community, like there's a real neurochemical component here where you do experience an increase in dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine. If you're with people, you have oxytocin, like all of these really like these feel good chemicals that are in the brain are produced in abundance when you do these things. And so that can become a way to reinforce behavior as well. But you never can get into that feedback loop if you don't step into it from time to time and kind of have repeat experiences where you are saying, I don't want to do this thing, but I'm going to go do it. And then it ends up being positive. Like if you do that enough, instead of like that future positive experience starts to override or lessen the degree to which you feel resistance to doing it. Mm-hmm. And that's just brain chemistry. Like that's how that works. It's not even, you could argue that it's a habit or it's a routine, but I would argue that brain chemistry is what drives the building of the habit and the routine for a lot of people.
What's the difference between a reason and an excuse?
We had a whole fight about this. I mean, okay, so an excuse can be a reason, but a reason is not always an excuse. Wait. An excuse is a type of reason. A reason is...
A reason is to explain why you did or didn't do something. Again, it's the answer to the question why. An excuse, I think, is the same thing without responsibility.
Okay, I think reasons become excuses when they're used to avoid responsibility.
Oh, I nailed it.
Yeah.
You looked that up. I nailed it. So really, there's no real difference except the way that it is perceived by the person receiving it or the person who's delivering it. Well, I did this because of this, so I'm not sorry. I think you can still have a reason for doing something and you take responsibility for it. That's the whole thing. An excuse is not a growth mindset. It's not, I didn't work out because my kid was sick. That's a reason, but it can also be an excuse. If you literally could not work out because your kid was sick, then it's both. But if you say, I don't know, how does that work?
I think
But then you have people who work out when their kids are sick. So then you could put it as an excuse.
Yes.
But then also somebody who doesn't want to leave their kid to go work out, and no judgment either way, or doesn't want to maybe do an at-home workout or gets childcare or whatever, then that's not necessarily an excuse. That's just values.
Yeah, a reason is kind of like a fair and logical justification.
Okay.
Where an excuse is a pretense. Like it's something that can actually be overridden logically.
Okay, I like that.
But isn't. I don't think it really comes down to responsibility, because I think responsibility, you can have responsibility in both of those things, but it's how they manifest from a behavior, like a later behavior side of things. That's what I think, at least in the context of what we're talking about. Like,
a lot of my clients will say, I didn't do this. I guess I'm just making excuses.
Oh, that just jump right into shame.
I will say almost always that's not an excuse. It's a reason.
Yeah.
Because I want to be productive about it.
Right.
Like, let's not put it on you. Let's think about the reason. But that means I still want you to take responsibility for it.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to think it's something inherent to you that you can't change. Well, I'm just a failure. I'm just making excuses.
It's kind of like that, just because something isn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your responsibility. Mm-hmm. But just because something is your responsibility, it doesn't mean that you need to make it your fault. Mm-hmm. So it kind of like, there's both angles towards that responsibility component. You don't have to fall on every sword. Like there can just be negative things that happen, but it's not necessarily something that you did or you need to own on an uber personal level. Yeah. Like you want to make things personal, like having that identity component is really vital, but you don't want to take everything personally.
There's a reason for everything that we do. Mm-hmm. So I think there's productivity in asking what was the reason you did that? Why did you do that? And taking the shame out of it. And I think if anyone should be giving themselves grace at any time, it should be in those moments, because beating yourself up over the past isn't productive moving forward.
Yeah, because there's a real discomfort that comes from doing that. Like not from beating yourself up. I mean, from kind of holding space to be human and have human experiences and not, judge them. It's like, how can you hold that and then also productively move forward? And how do I break myself out of the shame cycle that I'm so accustomed to, that I'm conditioned to? And that's where growth starts to happen mentally. And, growth happens in discomfort. That's just how growth happens, period. Whether it's actually doing difficult things, like creating physical adaptation, but like mental adaptation is really hard to create too. And it requires that you sort of mentally respond, or you respond, like you have a reaction to something, and then you observe that reaction as its own thing. And then you kind of hold, okay, this happened. I just reacted this way, which is what I'm trying to do less of. Interesting. How about that? And then don't become shameful for having that reaction that you're trying to not have, because you're just, you've just greased that groove neurologically over time. So yeah, you're not just gonna be able to flip switch and change. It's Buddhist stuff, really.
Yeah.
Like, this is just Buddhism.
I think in a practical way, giving yourself grace, allowing yourself to accept what happened as is. There's a form of acceptance, and then you figure out why, what the circumstances were, and how you can change or be different next time. Make it more of a positive outlook next time. And this is something I had to do with my therapist. If I had a bad day and it was something that I reacted to emotionally that I wish I didn't do, the therapist was always like, okay, but what were the circumstances? What were the other factors here? And I think there was a lot of comfort in that. And it wasn't so that I could say, well, then, yeah, it wasn't my fault. Like, I was just really tired and really hungry, or I had a bad day, or I failed to achieve my paces on a workout. That doesn't mean I'm not taking responsibility for the action.
Yeah.
But it allows me to know, okay, next time after a really hard day at work, I'm more vulnerable to this happening. I need to be more aware. I need to set myself up for success.
Yeah.
And giving yourself grace in those conversations, instead of just going into an appointment with a coach or a therapist being like, well, I failed again. Like, I'm not getting better. This. Like, It's a process. And so there's that form of grace. But I also think from a practical way, in what we were talking about at the beginning, which is, do I give myself grace or do I let myself off the hook? I think letting yourself off the hook is saying, I'm definitely not going to do that multiple days in a row. Giving yourself grace is saying, I'm still going to check the box today, but it's going to look different. So instead of doing my full-on run or workout, I'm just going to go for a walk. That's going to be a form of activity, and that's giving yourself grace.
Yeah.
I think there's not doing the workout and saying, I'm not going to miss twice. And that's something I tell myself with swimming. Hey, I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace, or I'm going to let myself off the hook, whatever you want to say it. Maybe I'm tired. I've prioritized other workouts. I need the morning off. I'm not going to miss next week, or I'm going to go on Friday.
Yeah.
And if you never miss twice, you end up going 50% of the time, which for a lot of people is a lot more than what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
So that's my practical answer.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty bang on. And that's just kind of a practical way to use that back and forth, and that really both kind of tools that give yourself grace, but also be willing to recognize, like, maybe I'm both giving myself grace and letting myself off the hook. And how do I hold both of those? And,
we're going so deep here.
I love that. Okay. So there's this, like, the self-loathing part of it is what allows that, and, or not self-loathing, not getting into that cycle. There's this story about the Dalai Lama coming to somewhere in the West, like in the US probably, and he was giving a talk, and then someone in the audience asked, what about self-hatred? What about self-loathing? And he didn't understand that question, because he didn't understand that concept. And so he asked, is this a nervous disorder? Self-hatred. Are people like that very violent? He discovered in that moment that people were capable of that in the Western world. It's really interesting how much of what we struggle with on a societal level, I think, is societal. Like, it's not necessarily, it is human nature to a degree, but it is amplified through what is rewarded and what is punished in our society. And so that I think makes it a really, really difficult thing to work against. But I found that really interesting because, not that the Dalai Lama is necessarily the standard that we should be aiming at from like a self-compassion, self-image standpoint, but it is an indication of what humans are capable of. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of practicing Buddhists in the world, and people who have put a lot of effort into changing the way that they see the world and they experience it and they live it. It is possible to rewire the way that we are with ourselves, mm-hmm. but it takes hard work, and it takes discomfort, and it takes looking and holding really negative experiences and not dabbling in shame. Or if you do dabble in shame, not shaming yourself for feeling shame, all of the arrows.
Yeah. A lot of people believe that change comes from a place of dissatisfaction or hatred. or shame. And I disagree. Most people, there are going to be people who change because they get to the lowest low of the low and they just finally get to a point where they say, I'm done. And I'll argue that in a second. So you could argue, hey, well, that's somebody who they hate themselves so much that they've decided to change who they are.
David Goggins.
Fundamental level. I don't believe that. I think change always comes from a place, I don't like the word always, but maybe I'll use it here, almost always comes from a place of love. And I think David Goggins is an example of that. You get to a point where you disrespect yourself so much that the only option is to change by saying, I respect myself too much to think of myself and to let myself go this far down.
But he won't tell that part of the story.
No, but I believe that he loves himself. And that's why he does what he does and did what he did. He finally found respect for himself.
Maybe not, though. Maybe he's just not done changing. There's also that possibility.
Maybe.
Like maybe he thinks he's at the end of the process, but he's not.
I still think that if you are doing things for yourself to make yourself stronger or to convince yourself that you're strong or whatever he does or whatever anyone does, that has to come from a place of respect.
I mean, I think so. For a lot of, I wouldn't say always. And I think my perspective.
I said almost always.
I know. I think sometimes the harder thing for certain people, you don't know what catalyzed David Goggins into action. Like, you know what he tells you, you know the story. He has done a lot of amazing things. Like, that is not something that can be argued. But sometimes, like, the harder thing is doing less. Like, don't get up at 4 a.m. and go run on bad knees. You know what I mean? Don't do that. Like, find something else. Do nothing. And I think in our society, some coping mechanisms are very widely accepted and celebrated compared to other coping mechanisms. But there's still coping mechanisms. And they're a way to avoid addressing or learning what self-regulation actually looks like. Because to me, there's always felt that, I mean, I don't know David Goggins from, Dan, but the way that he presents himself, I've always felt there's just something, like you running away from something, like, you know what I mean?
So he almost went in at the other direction.
Yeah.
So he comes, if you don't know David Goggins' story, he was basically low.
He
described himself as a couch potato.
Yeah.
Like, not successful in any way, basically a failure as a human being. Again,
not
like
physically active.
His words to a degree.
Large, not healthy, couldn't run.
Just thought of himself as the scum of the earth.
Yeah.
And basically said to himself, I'm done with this. And he changed his life. And he basically went from that to what he is now, which is, he's
a Navy SEAL after failing BUD/S like a number of times. He went on after becoming a Navy SEAL to become an Army Ranger. So he's basically gone through 2 Special Forces selections. He's done all kinds of ultra races. He's done Badlands. He's just done these
broken
like crazy
world records, like from physical challenges, like the number of pull-ups you can do in an hour or something.
Yeah.
So he's basically gone the other direction.
Right.
So maybe he hasn't. Maybe that's just another way that hatred for oneself or self-loathing materializes.
Yeah. I think like maybe he has to get up at 4 a.m. and run on busted knees because the idea of sitting with his thoughts, he can't. Like maybe he looks back and he talks about how much he hated himself when he was his former self, but I think he probably hates himself as his current self. He definitely hates looking back at that person because that person represents the worst possible version of him, where I'm like, I mean, that person's probably really great, just like you are really great right now. Why don't you love that person? Because they are the ones that got you to where you are. So it's all how you look at it. And that is how you look at yourself.
David Goggins never asked himself, dude, what is your reason for being the way that you are? And then whatever the answer is, he never said to himself, that's okay.
I love you, David.
That's okay. Where can we take it from here?
Yeah.
Instead, he was like, I don't effing care.
I don't want to think about that. You know, that's soft shit. That is soft shit. But
yeah, I mean, no judgment.
Mm-mm.
It might sound judgmental, but like, I mean, I actually respect the guy in a way. I remember
that's his thing.
Joe Rogan. I don't really respect Joe Rogan.
Well, that was his podcast with Joe Rogan was before
pretty good podcast.
Joe Rogan became super problematic.
Right. But yeah, that podcast was actually pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like Courtney DeWalter was on Joe Rogan, and I remember that episode because he kept trying to figure out what was wrong with her. He's like, okay, but what's your deal? Where's your demon? You know, who's your monster? And she's like, I just really like to run. Just so positive.
But she did talk a little bit about like the pain cave at one point, I think.
Well, of course, because it's painful.
But it wasn't
like I had all this.
I have trauma.
Right. And I think he really wants to think that that's the case for like ultra athletes.
Yeah.
And she's like,
I mean,
no,
there is a correlation.
For sure. But, you know, she's there because she loves running and she loves herself. And she's like, I just, you know, I do what I do. And that can also be it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny to think about that, you know, the way shame is for someone like David Goggins, and then the way that it shows up for a lot of people, which is that it shames them into kind of paralysis and into not doing. And it's that the motivation impact where you're lowering motivation because you're creating this story about yourself that isn't true. Mm-hmm. And then you just sort of get stuck in doing nothing when it's just it's the second and the third arrows. It's feeling shame and then feeling shame about feeling shame. And then, you know, I'm worthless and I've never been able to stick to anything. And you start just fabricating, your brain starts filling on all these gaps of, you know, I'm not doing the thing that I want to do because therefore, like we're just holding space for, I think I'm doing okay overall. And I've had some difficulty, you know, lately or whatever. Mm-hmm. I like this word. I like this concept of, instead of using the word but, use the word and. This came out of a call. So did the Dalai Lama story earlier, where if you're having, you know, you're working on yourself in some way. Mm-hmm. I'm building new habits. I think it's going really well. I think the natural thing for people to do is to say, but this bad thing happened. Therefore, and that's kind of where that path goes. Like, and it creates this situation where the doing well, but this bad thing happened exists in like a balance. Because I'm having difficulty, I'm actually not doing well. But I think that if you
maybe not in a balance, but contradicting each other.
Yeah, or that it's like it's used as proof. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think, and I heard someone say this earlier, and I've been kicking this around in my head. Instead of using the word but in a sentence, if you use the word and. So I'm working on building new habits in the gym, in my nutrition. And like, I think I've been doing really well and feeling positive. And my family member showed up to spend the week with me, and they brought all of this food that I don't want in the house. And they brought all of their baggage with their eating habits. And it's brought out some feelings in me and some behaviors in me that I don't necessarily love. The end.
That sounds weird.
Right? But when you think about, like, I think language is so important because the way that we experience things is sort of limited or directed by how we choose to speak about them and the words that we choose to use. So it's like, and, what does that result in? It results in you holding a whole lot of things at one time. Like doing well overall, building new habits, that's going good. And I experienced difficulty. Mm-hmm. It allows for this option where where experiencing difficulty doesn't mean you're not doing well at the thing that you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. It allows the things to exist at once. And it can create confidence in saying, because they're happening together. So you can say, I'm focusing on this, I'm doing well at this, and my family's coming. You almost want to say, so I can handle this. Yep. Or I'm feeling more confident than I have in the past.
Yep.
Instead of but, which negates almost in a way,
therefore,
the positives that you just talked about.
This is going to be really hard because
like Meredith and I are feeling really good. We laugh a lot together, but we also fight.
Meredith and I are feeling really good. We laugh a lot together, and sometimes we fight.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like that. And then it could open the door for imagining the challenge and visualizing yourself overcoming the challenge.
Yeah.
And just so much more than almost to circle back to a victim mentality, which is, but this is happening, so I guess it's all for nothing.
Yeah.
It's so powerful language.
Yep.
And visualizing is also very powerful too. Did you know there's something interesting about visualization? People who visualize something, the end goal, where you are just constantly thinking about achieving the goal and what people are going to think. Oh, if I run this 100-mile race, I'm going to be so cool. Everyone's going to think I'm the best. It's going to feel so good to cross the finish line. It's going to be just the best feeling ever. If you think about that enough, you can actually trick your brain into almost thinking that you've already done it.
Oh, yeah.
And it can take away from the work that you put into that actually is required to achieve the goal.
Yeah. It's fantasizing.
Yeah.
It's the impact of fantasizing.
But imagining yourself doing the process while also achieving the goal, like you can still have that fantasy.
Yeah.
But while achieving the process, imagining yourself overcoming challenges,
Yeah.
it can, again, in your brain, connect those patterns and make it seem as if you've already confronted those challenges, which makes it easier to overcome them when you are confronted with them in real life.
It's called episodic future thinking, EFT. So it's the ability to mentally simulate and experience future events that might happen to you personally. And it's specifically useful when you are envisioning, when you spend time visualizing process-related things. And this can be the process of like daily process of working towards a goal, or if you're visualizing something like an actual race, like the marathon that you've been prepping for. Instead of visualizing what it's going to feel like to cross the finish line, you put yourself into what it's going to feel like to experience pain, what it's going to feel like to hit the wall, what it's going to feel like if you drop your goo or your bottle. You start to like take that mental sneak peek into the future in a way that helps you build the tools and the resilience to move through those difficulties, instead of only preparing you to experience positive outcomes.
Yeah. So your brain can almost say, I guess it does, I've been here before. I know how to handle this, even though you've never actually experienced that thing from happening.
Yeah.
And then also having imagined all these hypothetical challenges to whatever goal you're trying to achieve, whether it's in the race or in the process. Okay, Alex, what happens if you get sick a month before your race?
Well, what's going to happen, Alex, is you're going to give yourself a little grace.
Exactly. You've managed, you know what that's going to be like. You've overcome that challenge in your head.
Yeah.
So when you're faced with it in real life, but maybe you've only thought about missing a week of training because your foot gets sore. But because you've overcome that challenge visually, you can say, wait, I've actually already considered this in regards to my foot, but being sick really is no different. I'll just apply the same principles I was going to apply to an injury.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how valuable visualization can be. But on the flip side, how problematic it can be if you're using it in the wrong way. And I've seen this happen.
Yep.
You can almost ask someone like, well, what if? And they are almost like, what do you mean, what if?
That's not going to happen.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And they don't take the possibility of, quote, failure seriously.
Yeah.
And so preparation can go down the drain. And you see this a lot with people who don't even know what is required before they sign up for a goal. And I say sign up because often it is a sign up. I'm going to sign up for an Ironman. I'm going to sign up for this. They don't even consider what the training looks like. Can I even manage the training? We've talked about this ad nauseum.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was so interesting.
Yeah. And then to bring that concept back to the letting yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
You can think about if you have noticed a pattern where you are giving yourself a little too much grace, and I mean like on the reg, and you're like, no, this is me giving, I'm just like in a pattern where I'm not doing the thing. Mm-hmm. You can, at the beginning of the day, and you can journal this. Journal is an amazing tool. Use it.
Or get a coach.
think through, like put yourself in the future and think, what is future me likely to conjure up as a reason to not do this? And reason, not an excuse, because future you is not going to see that as an excuse. They're going to see it as a reason. So you think about what barriers am I going to put in place? What am I going to come up with? And then what is my self-talk at that moment? How do I get myself to check back into the process and the why and override that? So you can take that episode of future thinking outside of specific events and goals and preparation like that and put it in everyday life by visualizing yourself in the future, talking to yourself in third person works really well, by the way. And just like sort of experiencing that mental back and forth that you're likely to get into at 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and then visualize yourself working through that and getting to the gym. And then once you're at the gym, visualize feeling like dog shit, but getting started anyways. Yeah. Go through the experience mentally, and that can start to help you when you actually find yourself in those moments because you've developed the resources and the tools to deal with it.
Yeah. It's the same with nutrition. I often say to my clients, like, what will be the biggest challenge? Oh, it's my in-law, my mother-in-law. She is always telling me that I need to eat more and this. Okay. What can you say to your mother-in-law? Let's go through this today. That's respectful, that will help you overcome that challenge. And so you can establish a boundary. And so when you practice it with me or by yourself, when you're in that situation, whether it presents itself or not, you can say to your mother-in-law, oh, I'm sorry, whatever script you have, and you've been through that before. So it's going to be easier. You've thought about the challenge. Yeah. Or, oh, there's going to be a bunch of snacks around. How are you going to overcome that challenge?
You've thought about whatever the hell your mother-in-law is going to say back to you when you tell her how you feel or what you would prefer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. You just have to be willing to do it.
Yeah.
Both like mentally and then also to do it.
Yeah, rather than just saying, well, my mother-in-law does this, so
we're not
I guess I just won't track and it is what it is. I mean, that's a reasonable thing too. Yeah. Some people it's like not worth the fight. Right. But, it still works.
Yeah. My family's not into hard conversations. Well, okay. I mean, all right, takeaway. I guess it's impossible to be perfect. There are no perfect people. There's no perfect path. If there was a perfect path, you're not going to stay on it. And I think there are, there's scenarios and moments in life that are just going to demand grace and like a slower way of doing things and moving through things. But there's also moments where we're going to let ourselves off the hook and we're going to opt for comfort. And that's not inherently bad because it's really the average of behaviors over time that matters, if it matters to you, if it's in an area that you care about.
Great summary.
I thought
takeaway.
So. Yeah. You have any other closing thoughts?
No, I was so engaged in this conversation. Thank you.
It was really, I felt
like we were Meredith, and thank you for listening if you did.
Yeah, I hope that you guys and gals enjoyed it. This is the stuff
I live for.
It was good. This was like a driving down the highway conversation.
Yeah, totally.
We caught it. We did it in the studio this time. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. If you got a lot out of this episode, it would really mean a lot if you shared it with a few people, left us a rating and review.
Good rating and good review.
Oh yeah, 5 stars
goes
only,
without
please.
saying, I guess.
Silly gooses. If you didn't know, we have paid podcasts available on Patreon. We're doing paid content over there. So if you dig us and you want to support us, we really appreciate it. It means the world. But if you can't manage it, it means a lot that you're here listening to this too. So thank you very much, and we'll catch you on the next episode.